Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is John Viglotti, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you joined us for the Clean Energy Metals Conference. Our first live presentation is from Elevate Uranium, a uranium exploration company with resources in Namibia and Australia. Please note you can submit questions in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Scheduled Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome our first presenter. He's Murray Hill, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Elevate Uranium, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol ELVUF and on the ASX under the symbol EL8. Welcome back, Murray.
Thanks, John, and it's great to be here. And how fitting is it for a uranium company to open the Clean Energy Metals Virtual Investor Conference? Uranium couldn't be any cleaner. It's a feed source for nuclear energy, and nuclear energy is in great demand around the world. And I must say, Namibia is sometimes a very difficult word for people to say, and my wife's one of those people that really jumbles the N and the M around and gets Namibia and so forth. But Namibia is a great spot in Africa. But let's start with nuclear. We just talked about uranium, and it's exciting to be in the uranium industry right now because there's so much talk around decarbonisation and electrification around the world. What is decarbonisation? It's a generation of energy with low to zero carbon emissions, and that's what nuclear provides. It's electrification is electrifying vehicles, turning them from diesel or fossil fuels into electric and being run off a grid. So that electrification demand is getting huge. It will put an enormous load on the current energy systems, and we want the new energy coming into this grid to feed these EVs to be low carbon emission, and that's what nuclear provides. So for decarbonisation, electrification to occur, we absolutely require carbon-free energy and reliable carbon-free energy that is there 24/7. And that's what nuclear is. So a very, very important part of our future is nuclear. And the issue we have right now is that the uranium supplying these nuclear power plants is in short supply. Over a number of years, due to low prices, there hasn't been the supply of uranium coming into the market. So we've now got a gap between the supply and the consumption. And that gap is beginning to grow and grow and grow. And that will grow as demand increases. And you can see on this graph that the demand, expected demand in the future is enormous, and that will put extreme supply constraints in terms of, we're not providing enough. And the only way to incentivize uranium production is for the underlying commodity price, uranium, U3O8, to go up. So we're firm believers that the uranium price will go north, and we expect it to probably exceed levels it did back in 2007 of $127 a pound or whatever it is. It really has to incentivize new production. So they're the two things that we can't control, but what we can control is what we do as a company. Our company is the only ASX listed company with uranium in our name. We're proud of being in the uranium industry. We're proud of being part of the nuclear industry. We've got 81 million pound of resources in Namibia. We've got 4 discoveries in Namibia in the past 4 we're actively exploring with success. We've got 48 million pound of resources in Australia. We've got a process we've developed in-house, patented, called Upgrade. Upgrade reduces the cost base significantly for these styles of ores that we're talking about. We've got a great team with uranium experience, and we're providing the industry with reliable baseload carbon-free energy, which is very, very important. And what better time to be in the industry? I think we're picking, if you're an investor coming in now, you're picking a fantastic time to come in. Now let's focus on Namibia, because that's where a lot of our efforts are being put into now. And the reason why is it's a great jurisdiction for uranium. It's been producing uranium through Rossing uranium mine in particular since 1976. So 47 years of continuous operating. And hence there's a couple of generations of Namibian culture that is very, very familiar with uranium processing, and it doesn't present any devils for them. It's a great opportunity for the country, and it's the 4th largest producer in the world at the moment, 5th largest in resources. a great jurisdiction to be in. I think John said he's going there for a safari in a couple of weeks' time. My family have been there for a safari back in 2011. 9 and 10-year-old kids absolutely loved it. And it is a really good spot to be. We've got a great team over there, and we enjoy operating in the country. So we concentrated on paleochannels. So in Namibia, over millions of years, uranium has leached out of the weathering granites, flowed down in old river systems, deposited when the geological characteristics are right. These deposits are in these old river systems. They've been covered up by by further weathering, and as a consequence, we've got paleochannels. We call them now. These old river systems called paleochannels. There's no evidence on surface where they are. So we're focused on those. So they're north of where Rossing sits in the middle of this map, in the central Orongo area, and south in the Namib area. These deposits are generally less than 25 metres deep. So you can imagine us drilling. We're drilling only 25 metres deep. That is a very, very shallow drill hole for most commodities. I don't think many commodities drill that shallow. So let me concentrate first on the Namib area down the bottom of this map. That's where we've got 3 discoveries in the last 4 years. It's where we've built up a contiguous land position over time. Why have we built that position up is because there's 270 million pound or more downstream of where our tenements are. So if we take you back to where the uranium's flowed through these old river systems, old paleochannels, we believe it's flowed through our tenements to get to these others. So hence we picked up these upstream. Now that's been successful for us. We've got 20 million pound resource at Copies, and we're actively exploring in this area. I must apologise for my error in my slides. I've got 2 drill rigs operating here, and on the next slide for Copies, I've also mentioned 2 drill rigs. I didn't update this slide. A couple of months ago, we put a 3rd rig in here, and I haven't updated the slide, so I apologise for that. But look, at the end of the day, we're drilling 75 holes a week here. We've got a crew that go out on a Monday morning, come back into town on a Friday night, and between the 3 drill rigs, they drill 75 holes a week. It's relatively inexpensive exploration because it's costing us about $1,000 per hole to drill these holes. So even though we're drilling 75 a week, it's not costing us a packet to go and drill and explore here. So we've now got 20 kilometres of mineralisation at Copies. It's an enormous area. We put a resource of 20 million pound on what you see. It depends what you see in your screen, whether it's pink or orange. In the middle of the map, that's the outline of the resource that we've previously put the estimated as 20 million pound on. We did that in the first period of tenure, the first 3 years, which is unprecedented in country. So that's how quickly we've moved on this project. Now we've got, I think we've drilled 1,600 holes last year. I've just worked out the other day we've got about 2,000 more to drill to be able to put a resource on this for that 20 kilometre length. So what you're going to see out of this project is we're going to see continual resource upgrades as we move through with time in our drilling program. So the first one, we're expecting the next one to be in October. Depends on whether the drills, rigs are active all the time or they break down, or you never know what might happen. So we never make any promises, but certainly we're aiming for the end of October for an upgrade of this resource, and then probably in Q1 next year is the next upgrade on it, and we'll see what happens after that in terms of, we're still doing delineation drilling. This may get bigger as it spreads east and west as well. So a lot more work to do here, a lot of work done so far, and it's a very successful project. We've also got in this area the Urabeb project. It's got 16 kilometres of mineralisation. Come January next year, when the rigs come back from their annual break over Christmas, New Year, then one rig will come down to the rest of the Namib area. One rig will probably stay at Copies, and another rig might well go up to the central Orongo area. So we're going to do a lot more exploration drilling, following up on stuff like this, the mineralisation we've found at Urabeb and the tenements around it. We've learned a lot from our exploration efforts at Copies, and we're looking to apply that to the other tenements we hold all around the Namibian area. So a lot of work to do in Namibia, a lot of blue sky potential, and looking very good down in the Namib area. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to cover every project we've got. We've got a lot of them, but we'll move up to the central Orongo area. This is where we've got the Marinika project just north of Arano's Trikopi project, and we've also got our Capri project there. So there's a lot of exploration potential in this area. Even though we've got a 61 million pound resource at Marinika, there's still a large area of this tenement that we haven't explored properly. So that's going to be a focus for us next year, to get a drill rig out here and drill and see if we can find extensions to this or even new deposits on this tenement. So this was the only project we had about 4 years ago. It was where we developed the upgrade process. It's a process that we concentrated this ore from 100 ppm nominally to 5,000 ppm before leaching. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. But it certainly lowers the cost base by nominally 50% compared to conventional processing, both for capital and operating. So that's a significant benefit for a project like this, and was the catalyst for us to go and build up a tenement position and commence exploration. So the Capri project, 16 kilometres of mineralisation here. I think you heard me say 16 kilometres at Hirabev. It seems to be a common number. And we've got a lot more. We've got some targets generated to the west of where we've got this mineralisation. We want to get back on. So we'll probably do that hopefully in January when the rigs come back from break, after they've been sort of working hard down at Copies trying to get as much into the resource as we can in that period of time. So a lot of exploration potential here, a lot more mineralisation to be found, we believe. Now, moving across to Australia, where I live, we've got 48 million pound of assets here in a number of projects. So we've got 4 100% owned projects in the Northern Territory and WA, and then we've got some joint venture interest in the Northern Territory. So just going through those, we've got the Angela project in the Northern Territory. It's 31 million pound at 1,300 ppm, so higher grade than our assets in Namibia. It has an acid consumption problem. We've gone and applied upgrade to it, significantly reduced the acid consumption by about 80%, and that hence reduces the operating cost substantially. So that's a value add we've done there. We're doing some work on that geophysically to try and understand whether we can further expand that resource. And the Minerva project, it's one of the higher grade projects in Australia. Got 10 drill holes with intercepts in excess of 10,000 ppm or 1%. It's very high grade, and got uranium strike length over 2.4 kilometres. We're doing some work on that, trying to understand whether or not we can expand that and potentially put a resource on that. So that's where we're working there. And then in WA, we've got the Ubaguma project. It's a shallow, probably ISR is what we understand. We've got an exploration target on it. It's got plenty of exploration potential there. We're just getting sort of access sorted out to try and get onto that land. It's on in a Defence Force area, so we need a government approval to get on that land. It takes a little while to work through. And then the Thatcher Soak is a really shallow deposit, 10 metres deep max, located near some bigger ones, calcrete deposits. And, we're looking to see what we can do with that over time. We believe upgrade's going to add significant value to that. Now, let's go and talk about something that I get asked a lot about. And I was on a US tour in June introducing the company, and a lot of people like the story around upgrade. It's a process that we developed in-house. It's a beneficiation process. So what it uses is you commonly use unit operations you'd find in a gold, a base metal, a mineral sands plant, and we've configured them in an unconventional manner with the focus on rejecting gangue minerals or minerals that don't contain uranium. So we don't focus on uranium, we focus on the gangue minerals and exploit their properties. So that's the uniqueness of it. That's what makes it patentable. And it rejects greater than 95% of the mass prior to leaching. And leaching is the highest unit cost operation in a processing plant. So we can reject the mass going through. Obviously, the size of the unit operations as we go through and rejecting mass are getting smaller. The capital is hence getting smaller. When you get to leach circuit, and if you're leaching less than 5% of the mass, you can imagine your costs are substantially less for all your reagents and for your capital. So it certainly makes a big difference to the cost base for processing these styles of ores. And I must say that not all ores are compatible to upgrade. It's mostly for calcrete-hosted uranium ores, mostly all near surface, and all the ores we've got in Namibia will be able to be processed through this. The benefits so far, I've mentioned both of them. The Marinika project, taking it to 5,000 ppm. The Angela project, reducing the acid consumption by 80%. And then the other benefits, it produces a low mass high grade concentrate. So what that means is that we can transport that concentrate off-site if we want to for leaching and refining. Or alternatively, we just leach and refine it on-site. So imagine if we take it off-site, we don't have to build the leach or the refinery with the tailings dam. So hence your capital costs come down even further. So for us, it enables us to develop projects that may be smaller than our peers and maybe low grade than our peers. So it provides us significant benefits. And it's a process that nobody else has. So we've got the lower cost base, we've got the optionality, and it's a process that no one else has. So environmentally, big difference. If you're not consuming near as much acid, obviously you don't then need as big a tailings dam, you don't bring as much acid through build-up areas to get to the mine site. So there's a lot of advantages around what we do with this upgrade. So then when you look at our corporate snapshot, we've got 3 directors. I'm one of them. We've got 2 executives. I'm one of them. So we're not overloaded with, top-end people. We don't have high overheads. We've got a relatively low number of shares on issue, 276 million. Our market cap's looking pretty good, and we've got money in the bank, which is fantastic to say, and money to keep us going for a period of time. We're burning in about 600,000 a month in that order, with 3 drill rigs working flat out. So we're not burning a lot of money. We've got money in the bank to keep us going, to service our exploration commitments, and we're really having some decent success there. So the next, really summarising us, we're solely committed to uranium exploration. That's all we do. We're all about uranium. We believe there's a very, very sound future for uranium, and the nuclear industry is going to be significantly greater than it currently is to meet the demand for decarbonisation and electrification. We've got pounds in the ground in Namibia. We've got discoveries happening in Namibia. We've got pounds in the ground in Australia. We've got a process that lowers the cost base substantially. We've got a good team. We're feeding uranium into the nuclear industry, which is producing carbon-free energy. Not low, it's carbon-free. And as I say, what better time to be in the uranium industry, because the demand for nuclear is just increasing almost exponentially as we decarbonisation and electrify the world. So to finish the presentation, I always love to finish, not just my contact details, because you can contact me at any stage, and I do answer every email that's sent through to me. But this photo here is the photo of copies. So when people talk to us, what's your seasons like? Can you drill all year round? Well, this is after 20 millimetres of rain, or for most people listening to this, it's a bit over 3/4 inches of rain is the annual rainfall event out there. And this little lily sits about 10 or 12 inches high that's popped up. But that's really the amount of rain we get. We might get the odd dust storm that come through, but you can drill 12 months of the year. There's nothing stopping you. And as you can see, we don't have too many animals to worry about. We don't have vegetation that causes us problems. So it's a pretty easy jurisdiction to be in. But we are in a national park. We do have to acknowledge that, and we look after it. We make sure we do our rehabilitation. It's an exciting industry to be in. Uranium. It's a lovely colour. It's the colour type that we deal with is the colour of my tie, and we're feeding this nuclear energy industry. So I'd like to thank you for listening. There's a few questions here that I'll have a look at and work my way through them if I can. There's an interesting question coming. If you are solely committed to exploration, who is going to take this project to production? Well, our focus right now is exploration. We see that whilst uranium price is sitting where it is, then the best value for money for us and our shareholders is to keep exploring, build up our pounds in the ground, see how big Copies is going to be, see how big Heribeb and Capri and Marinica can be expanded, see how big they can be, and then when the uranium price moves to a higher level, $80 a pound, whatever the price might be, we don't have a preconceived number, but what we will do then is say, okay, which project's going to go first? Which one is our favourite kid? Let's get it into production. So we'll move down the production path. Whether we get into production is another thing, but certainly, we all know, we're all grown people. We understand that larger companies buy smaller ones buy even smaller ones. So there's a possibility that we might get bought out before we develop, but certainly our focus will be on developing these projects with time. Another question here, what are your milestones for the next 12 months, and does your cash on hand cover the associated expenses? Absolutely. Our milestones for the next 12 months is, as I sort of indicated, get copies, gradual updates on the resource over sort of October, Q1 next year, with 3 rigs going flat out. Move those rigs around, leave one at copies to continue, and move those other 2 rigs around and look at working on projects that we've found so far, discovered. See if we can expand them and potentially moving to resource drilling on those as well. So we don't anticipate the need to raise money this year. We have enough money in the bank to do so. Another question is, can you provide some more colour around the uranium shortage? When will demand cross the supply line, and where are the 59 reactors under construction located? Interesting, they're all over the world. They're in the Arab states, they're in the UK, they just started one up in the US and another one start up shortly. They are scattered around the place. China are putting quite a few in. And some of the other, there's a lot of countries through Europe are looking at it. Obviously, one we don't talk about is Germany, that's sort of gone off the rails a little bit with their energy in terms of turning coal-fired power stations back on and nuclear off. Doesn't quite make sense for anybody, but they're the exception to the rule. But they are spread around the world, and so the shortage is coming from the fact that we don't have enough uranium to supply the current reactor fleet. And as we know, we're building reactors. There's going to be more and more demand. So incentivization is through is simply through the price going up. What have we got here? There's a question about the Mines and Energy Minister Tom Alwindo in Namibia. This is recently advocated for greater government control. Does this pose any threat to Elevate? What's the current conversation between the government and uranium companies such as yourself? One thing I didn't mention before, Namibia is the only country in the world that has a dedicated uranium association. The Namibian Uranium Association do a great deal of work supporting exploration and producing companies in Namibia, talking to government. The minister came out and made a comment about the need to have the state own some of the mining companies. He's also made it very clear to us in the past, when I've spoken to him, is that Namibians don't make money out of exploration companies. So let companies like us come in and explore 100% ownership. Once we find something, we accept the fact that probably 5 to 10% of the ownership will revert to local ownership, whether it be the state or whether it be a BEE partner. So what he's really saying is the state should own it instead of a BEE partner. So the state then have part ownership of the mine instead of, for instance, a wealthy person in Namibia. Let the state have it and the state can use the money. So it wasn't he's going to take more, than the 5 or 10%. There's still quite a few mines in Namibia that don't have any state ownership or any BEE partners. They're 100% foreign owned. So he's really just, I think he was taken mostly out of context because there was a lot more words he said than just the ones that were published. And certainly it was focused around the fact that we do need to make sure the state has some ownership and they're getting the rewards for it, not just one person who might be your partner. What is the... there's another question about, do you have any neighbouring companies that could work with you in the future? Look, we've got a few ASX listed companies in Namibia. There's one TSX listed company there. We're all members of the Namibian Uranium Association. We all talk to each other. We all collaborate. Look, you just never know what might happen in the future. We're not actively marketing our upgrade process, but it could be used on other projects in Namibia as well. But we're certainly focused on ourselves. We're doing a great job of exploration, in my view. If we can continue to find more discoveries, continue to get more resources in the ground, we know that upgrade's going to add significant value to those. So, look, you just never know what happens in this world. So I think that probably, I think there is one more question just come in. I think if I can understand it properly, what does the AU commit to uranium exploration and nuclear energy? Well, Australia is one of those countries that, has has some mixed views on whether uranium is useful in nuclear, and there's becoming more and more talk in Australia about the use of nuclear energy to provide the low carbon emission energy that we require in the future. I'm hoping over the next few years that debate gets louder and louder, and we do get some action on it. I think the small modular reactors are probably going to be what's going to make the difference for us. It's something that you can replace a coal-fired power station with a small modular reactor, so you don't have to build an excessive amount of new grid like you do for, say, for instance, new renewables. You've got a lot of grid lines to build in, a new grid to put in. So we're anticipating that that conversation will get stronger and stronger as more and more SMRs get developed. So look, there's no restriction on uranium exploration in Northern Territory and WA where we are. So certainly they encourage us to find something, and we can dig it out of the ground and send it out overseas. And hopefully it won't be too long before we can sort of use that uranium for our own purposes internally. So I'd like to thank you all for listening, and anybody that sits in back and has a few wines and listens to me later on the recording. I thank you all for doing so, and I appreciate the ability to sit in front of you and talk to you about Elevate Uranium, the nuclear sector, and all the best for the rest of the conference, and all the best in your investing futures.